The alien incursion. The sky burned orange as the alien ships descended upon Earth's major cities. Humanity, despite its technological advancements and interplanetary colonies, found itself woefully unprepared for the Zarkesh invasion. The extraterrestrial force had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, their massive fleet emerging from the dark side of the moon with terrifying efficiency. In New Shanghai, the gleaming metropolis that had become Earth's most populous city, chaos reigned. Towering skyscrapers crumbled under the onslaught of energy weapons that defied human understanding. The city's advanced defense systems, once thought impenetrable, fell silent within minutes of the initial attack. Amidst the pandemonium, a solitary figure moved with purpose through the debris-strewn streets. Major Sarah Chen, codenamed Wraith, navigated the destruction with a calm that belied the gravity of the situation. Her midnight black coat, the hallmark of Earth's most elite and secretive fighting force, seemed to absorb the very light around her. Wraith's neural implant chirped, a secure communication channel opening. "Wraith, this is Control. What's your status?" "I'm 3 clicks from the rendezvous point," she replied, her voice steady despite the explosions echoing through the city. "The Zarkesh have established a foothold in the financial district. Civilian casualties are extensive." "Understood. Your primary objective remains unchanged. Rendezvous with Recruit Evans and proceed to secure the quantum core. Without it, we lose our last line of defense." Wraith acknowledged the order and pressed on. As she rounded a corner, she came face to face with a Zarkesh scout. The alien, nearly 3 meters tall with iridescent scales and multiple limbs, raised its weapon. Wraith moved with inhuman speed, her augmented reflexes allowing her to close the distance before the alien could fire. A blade of pure energy extended from her sleeve, slicing through the Zarkesh's armor like paper. The alien fell, its death rattle a haunting, multitonal screech. Wraith didn't pause, continuing her sprint towards the rendezvous point. Across the city, Recruit Michael Evans huddled in the shadows of a collapsed maglev station. Fresh out of the Black Coat training program, this was supposed to be a routine first mission. Now, he found himself in the middle of an alien invasion, tasked with assisting one of the most legendary operatives in the organization. Evans checked his gear for the 100th time. The Black Coat technology he carried was generations ahead of anything available to regular military forces, but against the Zarkesh, he wasn't sure it would be enough. A sound caught his attention. Footsteps, too precise to be panicked civilians. He tensed, ready for combat, only to relax slightly as he recognized the distinctive silhouette of a fellow Black Coat. "Major Chen," he called out softly. Wraith emerged from the smoke, her features obscured by an advanced rebreather. "Recruit Evans. Status report." Evans swallowed hard. "The quantum core is still secure, ma'am. I've been monitoring Zarkesh communications, and they don't seem to be aware of its existence yet." Wraith nodded. "Good work. We move now. Stay close and follow my lead." As they made their way through the ruins of New Shanghai, Evans couldn't help but marvel at Wraith's composure. He had heard stories of the Black Coat's augmentations and training, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. "Major," Evans ventured as they paused to avoid a Zarkesh patrol, "what exactly is this quantum core? How can it help us against this?" He gestured at the alien ships that loomed overhead. Wraith was silent for a moment. "The quantum core is humanity's ace in the hole, Recruit, a technology we've been developing in secret for decades. If we can get it operational, it might just give us a fighting chance." Before Evans could press for more details, Wraith held up a hand for silence. A group of civilians stumbled into view, pursued by a squad of Zarkesh warriors. Without hesitation, Wraith sprang into action. Her movements were a blur as she engaged the aliens. Evans watched in awe as she danced between plasma bolts, her energy blade leaving a trail of light as it cut through Zarkesh armor. Snapping out of his stupor, Evans joined the fray. his own augmented abilities allowing him to hold his own against the extraterrestrial threat. In less than a minute, the Zarkesh lay defeated. Wraith turned to the stunned civilians. "Head east. There's a secure bunker 3 kilometers from here. Go now." As the civilians fled, Evans caught his breath. "That was incredible, Mom." Wraith's expression remained impassive. "This is what the Black Coats were created for, Evans. When humanity faces extinction, we're the last line of defense. Remember that." They pressed on, the quantum core facility now just a few blocks away. As they approached, the true scale of the Zarkesh invasion became apparent. Thousands of smaller craft swarmed around the larger ships, deploying troops and weaponry at an alarming rate. How did we miss this? Evans wondered aloud. An invasion force this size, shouldn't we have seen it coming? Wraith's reply was grim. "That's a question for another time, recruit. Right now, our only concern is survival." They reached the nondescript building that housed the quantum core. To Evans' surprise, it appeared untouched by the destruction that surrounded it. Wraith approached a seemingly solid wall, placing her hand against its surface. Lines of blue light spread from her fingertips, and a hidden door slid open. "Welcome to humanity's last hope," Wraith said as they entered. The facility was a hive of activity. Scientists and military personnel worked feverishly around a massive spherical device that pulsed with an otherworldly light. Dr. Ava Patel, the lead scientist on the Quantum Core project, rushed to meet them. "Major Chen, thank God you're here," Dr. Patel said, her voice strained. "We're ready to activate the core, but we have a problem. The Zarkesh. They're not just invading. They're terraforming the planet as they go. The atmospheric changes are interfering with the core's calibration." Wraith processed this information quickly. "What do you need?" Dr. Patel handed her a small device. "We need readings from the upper atmosphere. It's a suicide mission with those ships up there. But without that data, the quantum core is useless." Evans watched as Wraith took the device without hesitation. "I'll get it done. Evans, you stay here and assist Dr. Patel. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, initiate the fail-safe protocols." "But Major," Evans protested, "let me go instead." Wraith cut him off. "That's an order, recruit. Humanity's survival is bigger than any one of us. Remember your training." With that, she was gone, racing back into the chaos of the invaded city. Evans turned to Dr. Patel, determination setting in. "What can I do to help, Doctor?" As they worked to prepare the quantum core, Evans couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of humanity now rested on the shoulders of one extraordinary woman in a black coat, racing against time in a city overrun by alien invaders. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. The scientists worked feverishly, making final adjustments to the quantum core as the sounds of battle drew ever closer. Evans found himself constantly checking the time, acutely aware of Wraith's 30-minute deadline. Just as hope began to fade, alarms blared throughout the facility. "Proximity alert," a computerized voice announced. "Unknown entity approaching at high velocity." Evans readied his weapon, prepared to defend the core with his life. The hidden entrance slid open, and a figure stumbled in, black coat, torn and smoldering in places. "Major Chen." Evans rushed to support Wraith as she collapsed to one knee. "Data secured," she gasped, holding out the device to Dr. Patel. "Atmospheric. Readings complete." Dr. Patel grabbed the device and immediately began uploading the data to the core systems. "It's working," she exclaimed. "The calibration is stabilizing." Wraith struggled to her feet with Evans' help. "Status report, Doctor. How long until the core is operational?" 10 minutes, Dr. Patel replied, her fingers flying over holographic interfaces. "But Major, the Zarkesh. They know we're here. They're coming." As if on cue, a massive explosion rocked the facility. Dust and debris rained down as the ceiling cracked ominously. Wraith's expression hardened. "Evans, take half the security team and hold the main entrance. I'll take the rest and secure the emergency exit. We need to buy the doctor every second we can." Evans nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. As he moved to carry out his orders, Wraith caught his arm. "Remember your training, recruit. You're a black coat now. Make it count." With that, they split up, preparing for what could be humanity's last stand. Evans positioned his team at the main entrance, the sounds of approaching Zarkesh growing louder by the second. "This is it," he thought to himself. "Everything the black coats stand for. It all comes down to this moment." The door buckled under an immense impact. Evans steadied his breathing, his augmented senses hyper-aware of every detail around him. As the Zarkesh breached the entrance, he allowed himself one final thought. For Earth, for humanity, we are the last line of defense. And then, the battle was joined, the fate of an entire species hanging in the balance, as the quantum core hummed to life behind them. The black coats emerge. The air crackled with energy as Evans and his team engaged the Zarkesh forces breaching the facility. His black coat training kicked in, muscle memory and augmented reflexes working in perfect harmony. Each movement was precise, each shot finding its mark with uncanny accuracy. But the Zarkesh were relentless. For every alien that fell, two more seemed to take its place. Evans could feel the strain on his enhanced body as he pushed himself to the limit, determined to buy Dr. Patel the time she needed. 5 minutes until core activation. Dr. Patel's voice rang out over the facility's comm system. Evans gritted his teeth, ducking under a plasma bolt that sizzled past his head. "You heard the doctor," he shouted to his team. "Hold the line." Across the facility, Wraith was orchestrating a defense that bordered on the miraculous. Her movements were a blur, her energy blade carving through Zarkesh armor like it was made of paper. But even she couldn't be everywhere at once. A particularly large Zarkesh warrior broke through the defensive line, its massive frame barreling towards the quantum core. Wraith reacted instantly, launching herself at the alien with inhuman speed. They collided in midair, a tangle of limbs and flashing energy weapons. As they grappled, Wraith caught a glimpse of something strange. The Zarkesh's eyes, previously a solid glowing orange, flickered for a moment. In that split second, she saw something unexpected. Fear. Before she could process this revelation, the facility shook violently. A deafening roar filled the air as the ceiling began to cave in. Core activation in 60 seconds. Dr. Patel's voice was tinged with panic. Wraith disengaged from the Zarkesh warrior, kicking off its chest to propel herself back towards the core. "Evans," she shouted into her comm. "Fall back to the core chamber. Now." Evans and what remained of his team retreated, providing covering fire as they went. They'd reached the core chamber just as Wraith sealed the heavy blast doors. "Doctor," Wraith said, her voice steady despite the chaos, "what happens when the core activates?" Dr. Patel looked up from her console, her eyes wide. "Theoretically, it should create a quantum field that renders all Zarkesh technology inert. But at this scale, I'm not entirely sure." The room fell silent save for the hum of the core, which was growing louder by the second. Evans looked around at the battered and bloodied faces of his fellow defenders. Some were scientists who had never seen combat before today. Others were seasoned black coats who had faced death countless times. In this moment, they were all united in a single purpose: survival. 10 seconds, Dr. Patel announced. Wraith moved to stand beside Evans. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "you've done humanity proud. Recruit." Evans nodded, unable to find words as the core's humming reached a fever pitch. 3, 2, 1. The world exploded into light. When Evans regained consciousness, the first thing he noticed was the silence, the constant barrage of weapons fire, the screech of Zarkesh war cries, the rumble of collapsing buildings. It had all stopped. He struggled to his feet, his enhanced vision adjusting quickly to the dim emergency lighting. Around him, others were stirring, including Wraith and Dr. Patel. "Status report," Wraith demanded, already moving to secure the room. Dr. Patel rushed to her console. "The core. It worked. It's generating a stable quantum field. But the power requirements are enormous. We're running on emergency generators now." Evans made his way to a small viewport, peering out at the city beyond. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. "Major," he called out, "you need to see this." Wraith joined him at the viewport. Outside, the once bustling metropolis of New Shanghai lay in ruins, but amidst the destruction, a new sight greeted them. Zarkesh ships, from the smallest scout vessels to the massive motherships, hung motionless in the air. Some had crashed to the ground, while others drifted aimlessly, their anti-gravity systems clearly malfunctioning. "It worked," Wraith breathed, a rare note of awe in her voice. "The quantum field. It's disabled their tech." Dr. Patel's voice cut through their moment of triumph. "Major Chen, we're receiving transmissions from black coat cells around the globe. The effect is worldwide. The Zarkesh invasion has been halted." A cheer went up from the assembled defenders, but Wraith remained focused. "We've won the battle, not the war," she cautioned. "Doctor, how long can we maintain the quantum field?" Dr. Patel's expression grew serious. "With our current power supply, maybe 48 hours. After that, we're back to square one," Wraith finished. She turned to address the room. "Listen up. We have a 48-hour window to turn this invasion around. I need communications established with all remaining military and governmental authorities. We need to coordinate a global counteroffensive while the Zarkesh are vulnerable." As the room burst into activity, Evans found himself pulled aside by Wraith. "You held the line when it mattered most, recruit," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "But the real test is yet to come. Are you ready?" Evans straightened, feeling the weight of his responsibility as a black coat. "Yes, Mom." "What do you need me to do?" Wraith's expression was grim but determined. "We're going hunting. The Zarkesh may be down, but they're not out. We need to capture one of their officers, someone who can give us intel on their plans, their weaknesses." "But Major," Evans protested, "with their tech disabled, won't they be easy targets?" Wraith shook her head. "Don't underestimate them, Evans. They didn't conquer half the galaxy by relying solely on technology. They're dangerous. Now more than ever, cornered animals fight the hardest." As they prepared for their mission, equipping themselves with an arsenal of non-tech weaponry, Evans couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. The black coats were stepping out of the shadows, ready to lead humanity's counteroffensive against an alien threat. Their first stop was a makeshift command center established in the ruins of New Shanghai's central district. Military personnel from various nations had gathered, all looking to the black coats for leadership in this unprecedented crisis. General Zhang of the Pan-Asian Alliance approached Wraith as soon as they arrived. "Major Chen," he said, his voice gruff, "I got troops ready to move, but we're flying blind here. What can you tell us about the enemy?" Wraith activated a holographic display, showing a map of the city with red dots indicating known Zarkesh positions. "The quantum field has left them without their advanced weaponry, but they're far from helpless. They're regrouping, fortifying key positions throughout the city." She zoomed in on a particular area. "This is our primary target. Intelligence suggests it's the location of their local command structure. If we can capture their leadership, we may gain crucial information about their invasion plans and potential weaknesses." As Wraith outlined the assault plan, Evans marveled at the respect she commanded. Hardened military veterans listened intently, deferring to her expertise without question. It was a stark reminder of the Black Coats' position as humanity's ultimate defense force. The plan was daring, relying heavily on the element of surprise and the Zarkesh's unfamiliarity with non-technological combat. Evans found himself assigned to Wraith's strike team, tasked with penetrating the heart of the alien stronghold. As they moved out, the devastated cityscape served as a grim reminder of what was at stake. Collapsed skyscrapers and cratered streets bore witness to the ferocity of the initial assault. But now, an eerie quiet had settled over New Shanghai, broken only by the occasional sound of distant combat. Their approach to the Zarkesh command post was met with sporadic resistance. The aliens, stripped of their energy weapons, fought with a savage desperation that was almost admirable. But they were no match for the Black Coats' augmented abilities and years of specialized training. As they neared their objective, Wraith held up a hand, signaling the team to halt. "Something's not right," she murmured, her enhanced senses on high alert. "It's too quiet." No sooner had the words left her mouth than the air was filled with a high-pitched keening. Evans clutched his head in pain, his augmented hearing amplifying the debilitating sound. "Sonic weapon," Wraith shouted over the noise. "They've adapted faster than we anticipated." Through watering eyes, Evans saw shapes moving in the shadows, Zarkesh warriors, seemingly unaffected by the sonic assault. As the aliens closed in, Wraith made a split-second decision. "Evans," she called out, "with me. The rest of you, fall back and regroup." Before he could process the order, Wraith had grabbed his arm, pulling him towards a half-collapsed building. They ducked inside just as a barrage of primitive but effective projectiles peppered the spot where they had been standing. "What now, Major?" Evans asked, his ears still ringing from the sonic attack. Wraith's eyes gleamed with a mixture of determination and what Evans could have sworn was excitement. "Now, recruit, we improvise. The mission parameters have changed, but the objective remains the same. We're going to infiltrate that command post, just the two of us." As they moved out, the devastated cityscape served as a grim reminder of what was at stake. Collapsed skyscrapers and cratered streets bore witness to the ferocity of the initial assault. But now, an eerie quiet had settled over New Shanghai, broken only by the occasional sound of distant combat. Their approach to the Zarkesh command post was met with sporadic resistance. The aliens, stripped of their energy weapons, fought with a savage desperation that was almost admirable. But they were no match for the Black Coats' augmented abilities and years of specialized training. As they neared their objective, Wraith held up a hand, signaling the team to halt. "Something's not right," she murmured, her enhanced senses on high alert. "It's too quiet." No sooner had the words left her mouth than the air was filled with a high-pitched keening. Evans clutched his head in pain, his augmented hearing amplifying the debilitating sound. "Sonic weapon," Wraith shouted over the noise. "They've adapted faster than we anticipated." Through watering eyes, Evans saw shapes moving in the shadows, Zarkesh warriors, seemingly unaffected by the sonic assault. As the aliens closed in, Wraith made a split-second decision. "Evans," she called out, "with me. The rest of you, fall back and regroup." Before he could process the order, Wraith had grabbed his arm, pulling him towards a half-collapsed building. They ducked inside just as a barrage of primitive but effective projectiles peppered the spot where they had been standing. "What now, Major?" Evans asked, his ears still ringing from the sonic attack. Wraith's eyes gleamed with a mixture of determination and what Evans could have sworn was excitement. "Now, recruit, we improvise. The mission parameters have changed, but the objective remains the same. We're going to infiltrate that command post, just the two of us." As they moved deeper into the ruined building, searching for an alternative route to their target, Evans couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. He was a Black Coat, part of humanity's most elite fighting force, about to embark on a mission that could turn the tide of an alien invasion. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever adaptations the Zarkesh might throw at them, Evans knew one thing for certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. And with soldiers like Wraith leading the charge, they stood a real chance of emerging victorious. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the Black Coats were ready to tip the scales, turning the tide. Wraith and Evans crept through the skeletal remains of New Shanghai's once proud skyline, their black coats blending seamlessly with the shadows. The Zarkesh command post loomed ahead, a twisted amalgamation of alien architecture and commandeered human structures. "Remember your training, Evans," Wraith whispered as they paused behind a chunk of fallen concrete. "The Zarkesh may be without their advanced tech, but they're still formidable opponents. Stay alert." Evans nodded, his enhanced senses straining to detect any sign of alien activity. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional creak of settling debris. They advanced cautiously, using hand signals to communicate. As they neared the perimeter of the alien stronghold, Wraith held up a closed fist, the signal to halt. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on something Evans couldn't see. "There," she breathed, pointing to a barely visible shimmer in the air about 50 meters ahead. "Looks like they've jury-rigged some kind of primitive cloaking field. Clever bastards." Evans squinted, his augmented vision finally picking up the subtle distortion. "How do we get past it?" A ghost of a smile played across Wraith's lips. "We don't. We use it." Before Evans could ask for clarification, Wraith was moving. She sprinted towards the cloaking field, her movements a blur even to Evans' enhanced perception. Just as she reached the barrier, she leaped, twisting in midair to land in a roll that carried her through the field. For a moment, Evans lost sight of her. Then, chaos erupted on the other side of the barrier. Alien screeches and the sounds of hand-to-hand combat filled the air. Taking his cue, Evans followed Wraith's lead, charging through the cloaking field. He emerged into pandemonium. Wraith was a whirlwind of lethal efficiency, her energy blade flashing as she engaged multiple Zarkesh warriors simultaneously. Evans wasted no time joining the fray, his black coat training kicking in as he grappled with a particularly large alien. The fight was brutal and swift. Within minutes, the Zarkesh guards lay incapacitated or dead. Wraith wiped a smear of alien blood from her cheek, her breathing only slightly elevated. "Nice work, recruit," she said, giving Evans an approving nod. "Now comes the hard part." They made their way deeper into the alien stronghold, encountering sporadic resistance. The Zarkesh, caught off guard by the bold incursion, struggled to mount an organized defense. But as they neared the central command area, the opposition stiffened. Rounding a corner, they found themselves face to face with a squad of Zarkesh elite guards. These warriors, easily distinguishable by their ornate armor, moved with a fluid grace that belied their size. "Evans, go high," Wraith called out as she dropped into a low fighting stance. Understanding instantly, Evans launched himself upwards, using his augmented strength to propel himself onto a hanging piece of infrastructure. From his elevated position, he rained down a barrage of precision strikes, keeping the Zarkesh off balance. Wraith capitalized on the distraction, closing the distance and engaging the aliens in close combat. Her energy blade hummed as it clashed against the Zarkesh's hastily improvised weapons. The battle was fierce, but brief. As the last elite guard fell, Evans dropped back to ground level, breathing heavily. "You okay?" Wraith asked, her eyes scanning him for injuries. Evans nodded, wincing slightly as he rotated his shoulder. "Nothing the nanotech can't handle." "You?" "I'm fine," she replied, already moving towards a massive set of doors at the end of the corridor. "This has to be it." The command center. They approached cautiously, wary of traps. Wraith ran her hand along the seam of the doors, her brow furrowed in concentration. "No electronic lock," she murmured. "They've sealed it manually. Stand back." Evans watched in awe as Wraith placed both hands flat against the doors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the massive barriers began to slide apart. "How did you?" Evans began, but Wraith cut him off with a sharp gesture. The command center beyond was dim, lit only by the eerie glow of alien bioluminescent technology. And there, in the center of the room, stood a figure unlike any Zarkesh they had encountered so far. Tall and regal, with iridescent scales that seemed to shift color with each movement, the alien exuded an aura of authority, its multifaceted eyes fixed on the two black coats, and when it spoke, its voice was a complex harmony of tones. So, it said, the words somehow perfectly understandable despite the alien physiology, the humans and their shadow warriors. I am Zarlath, High Commander of the Galactic Expansion Fleet. And you are the reason our glorious conquest has stalled. Wraith stepped forward, her energy blade humming to life. Your glorious conquest ends here, Zarlath. Surrender, and we might just let your species survive this encounter. The alien's multitoned laugh filled the chamber. Brave words, little human, but you fail to understand the true nature of this conflict. We are not here merely to conquer. We are here to save you from yourselves. Evans felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? He asked, unable to keep the question from escaping his lips. Zarlath's gaze shifted to Evans, its eyes seeming to pierce through him. Your species stands on the brink of a great leap forward. The quantum technology you've developed. It is but the first step towards abilities you can scarcely imagine. But you are not ready. Unchecked, this power will lead to your extinction, and potentially the destruction of this entire sector of the galaxy. Wraith's grip on her weapon tightened. So you decided to wipe us out first. How altruistic of you. Not wipe out, Zarlath corrected. Guide. Control. Shepherd your species towards its true potential, under our benevolent rule. I've heard enough, Wraith growled, taking a fighting stance. Humanity doesn't need alien overlords to reach its potential. We'll forge our own path, thank you very much. As she prepared to engage Zarlath, a sudden tremor shook the building. Alarms began to blare, and the command center's view-screens flickered to life, showing scenes of chaos outside. Evans gasped as he saw what was happening. The quantum field that had neutralized the Zarkesh technology was fluctuating, creating pockets where alien tech was coming back online. In those areas, the tide of battle was quickly turning back in the invaders' favor. Zarlath's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. It seems the choice is no longer yours to make. Your quantum field is failing. Soon, our full might will be restored, and this planet will fall. But I am not without mercy. Surrender now, pledge your allegiance to the Zarkesh Imperium, and your species will be granted a place of honor in our new order. Wraith and Evans exchanged a look. In that silent communication, a decision was made. They had come here for information, for an advantage against the alien invaders. Instead, they had stumbled upon a truth far more complex and far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Evans, Wraith said, her voice low and intense, get back to the quantum core facility. Tell Dr. Patel what we've learned. If the Zarkesh are right about the potential of our quantum tech, she needs to find a way to stabilize it, to push it further. But Major, Evans protested. What about you? Wraith's eyes never left Zarlath as she replied. I'll keep our friend here occupied. Buy you and the doc some time. Evans hesitated for a split second, then nodded sharply. As he turned to leave, Wraith called out one last time. Evans, remember, the fate of humanity rests on this. Don't let us down. With that, Evans sprinted from the command center, the sounds of battle erupting behind him as Wraith engaged the Zarkesh High Commander. His mind raced as he navigated the alien stronghold, processing everything they had learned. The quantum technology that had seemed like humanity's salvation might also be its greatest threat. But it was also their best hope for survival. As he emerged into the devastated streets of New Shanghai, Evans knew that the true battle for Earth's future was just beginning. And the Black Coats would be at the forefront. As always, humanity's last and best line of defense against the darkness that threatened to engulf them all. The final push. Evans raced through the chaotic streets of New Shanghai, his enhanced physiology pushing him to speeds that would have been impossible for a normal human. The sounds of renewed battle echoed all around him as pockets of restored Zarkesh technology turned the tide in various skirmishes. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Wraith, facing off against the Zarkesh High Commander alone. The revelation about the true nature of the quantum technology. The fate of humanity hanging in the balance. But he pushed it all aside, focusing on the mission at hand. As he approached the quantum core facility, he saw signs of heavy fighting. The defensive perimeter had been breached in several places, and the air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of weapons fire. Evans tapped into the Black Coat communication network. "This is Recruit Evans. I need an immediate sitrep on the quantum core facility." A gruff voice responded, tinged with strain and static. "Evans, this is Colonel Blackburn. The facility is under heavy assault. We're holding, but barely. Where the hell is Major Chen?" "Sir, I have critical intelligence from the Zarkesh command post. I need to speak with Dr. Patel immediately," Evans replied, dodging a piece of falling debris as he neared the facility. "Understood. We'll clear you a path to the core chamber. But be advised, Recruit, we're on borrowed time here." Evans acknowledged and pushed on, his black coat training allowing him to slip through the chaos of battle with almost supernatural grace. As he entered the facility, he was met by a squad of defenders who quickly ushered him towards the core chamber. The scene inside was one of frantic activity. Dr. Patel and her team were working furiously at various consoles, while black coat operatives and regular military personnel fortified the entrances. "Dr. Patel," Evans called out as he entered, "we have new information about the quantum technology. It's crucial." The scientist looked up, her face drawn with exhaustion and worry. "Recruit Evans? Where's Major Chen?" Evans quickly relayed the information they had learned from Zarlath, watching as Dr. Patel's expression shifted from confusion to shock and finally to a glimmer of understanding. "Of course," she muttered, more to herself than to Evans. "The quantum fluctuations, the power requirements. It all makes sense now." She turned to her team, a new fire in her eyes. "Listen up. We need to recalibrate the core. We're not just trying to neutralize alien tech anymore. We're going to push this technology to its limits." As the scientists set to work, Colonel Blackburn approached Evans. "Recruit, I need you on the front lines. We've got Zarkesh forces converging on our position from all directions." Evans nodded, pushing aside his fatigue. "Yes, sir. But what about Major Chen? She's still at the Zarkesh command post, facing their high commander alone." Blackburn's expression hardened. "We can't spare anyone for a rescue mission, Evans. Not with what's at stake here." Major Chen knew the risks. "Our priority has to be protecting this facility and giving Dr. Patel the time she needs." The words hit Evans like a physical blow, but he knew the colonel was right. With a heavy heart, he made his way to the facility's main entrance, joining the defenders as they prepared for the Zarkesh onslaught. The next few hours were a blur of intense combat. The Zarkesh threw everything they had at the facility, waves of troops supported by whatever functioning technology they had managed to cobble together. Evans found himself fighting alongside seasoned black coats and raw recruits alike, all united in their desperate defense of humanity's last hope. As he dispatched yet another Zarkesh warrior, Evans caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. A massive alien war machine, easily the size of a small building, was lumbering towards the facility. Its energy weapons were glowing ominously, clearly unaffected by the weakening quantum field. "Colonel," Evans shouted into his comm, "we've got a major problem incoming. Some kind of Zarkesh superweapon. Our current defenses won't hold against that thing." Blackburn's reply was grim. "Understood, Evans. We're out of options here. Dr. Patel says she needs just a few more minutes to complete the recalibration. We have to hold that thing off, no matter the cost." Evans looked around at the battered defenders, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. "Understood, sir. We'll buy that time." As the alien war machine drew nearer, Evans rallied the defenders. Listen up. We are the last line of defense between humanity and extinction. Every second we hold that thing back is another second for Dr. Puddle to finish her work. We are Black Coats. We are Earth's defenders. And we will not fail. A ragged cheer went up from the assembled fighters, and they prepared for what might very well be their last stand. The battle that followed was nothing short of apocalyptic. The Zarkesh war machine unleashed devastation on a scale Evans had never seen before. Buildings crumbled, the very ground shook, and defenders fell by the dozen. But still, they held the line. Evans found himself at the forefront, using every trick and skill in his black coat arsenal to keep the monstrous weapon at bay. His energy blade flashed as he severed hydraulic lines, his augmented strength allowing him to tear away armor plating, exposing vulnerable systems beneath. But it wasn't enough. The war machine continued its inexorable advance, shrugging off their attacks like they were nothing more than minor annoyances. As Evans watched a group of defenders get vaporized by one of its energy beams, he knew they were out of time. Dr. Patel, he gasped into his comm, narrowly dodging a swipe from one of the machine's massive arms. Please tell me you're ready. We can't hold this thing back any longer. For a heart-stopping moment, there was no response. Then, Dr. Patel's voice crackled through, filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. It's ready, Evans. But this is completely untested. The power levels we're dealing with, I can't guarantee what will happen when we activate it. Evans looked up at the looming form of the Zarkesh war machine, then back at the quantum core facility. In that moment, he made a decision. Do it, Doctor. Whatever happens, it can't be worse than what we're facing now. Understood. Activating quantum core recalibration in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded into light and sound. Evans felt a sensation like every atom in his body was being pulled apart and put back together simultaneously. The air itself seemed to ripple and distort, reality bending in ways that shouldn't have been possible. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Evans blinked, his augmented senses struggling to readjust. The first thing he noticed was the silence, the constant barrage of weapons fire, the thunderous footsteps of the war machine. It had all stopped. As his vision cleared, he saw why. The Zarkesh war machine stood frozen in place, its energy weapons flickering weakly before going dark. All around, alien invaders were collapsing, their bodies seemingly unable to cope with whatever the recalibrated quantum core had done. But the effects weren't limited to the Zarkesh. Evans watched in awe as debris began to float upwards, defying gravity. He felt a tingling sensation throughout his body, and realized with a start that he could sense the quantum fluctuations around him, as if a new sense had suddenly awakened. Evans. Dr. Patel's voice came through his comm, filled with excitement and disbelief. Are you seeing this? The core, it's done something to the fundamental forces of our reality. We've unlocked abilities we never thought possible. As the implications of what had happened began to sink in, Evans remembered Zarlath's words. The quantum technology was indeed more powerful and dangerous than they had ever imagined. But now, it was in humanity's hands. The final push against the Zarkesh invasion had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But as Evans looked out over the altered landscape of New Shanghai, he realized that this wasn't the end of their struggle. It was just the beginning of a new chapter in human history, and the Black Coats would be there, as always, to guide humanity through the challenges that lay ahead. Humanity triumphant. The days following the activation of the recalibrated quantum core were a blur of activity and discovery. As news of the Zarkesh defeat spread across the globe, humanity began to grapple with the new reality they found themselves in. Evans stood atop the ruins of what was once New Shanghai's tallest skyscraper, surveying the changed landscape. The city was a mix of destruction and impossible beauty. Chunks of debris hung suspended in midair, forming impromptu floating islands. In some areas, The very fabric of reality seemed to shimmer and shift, creating mesmerizing patterns that defy description. Quite a view, isn't it? Evans turned to see Dr. Patil approaching, her lab coat fluttering in a breeze that seemed to defy normal air currents. "Doctor," he greeted her with a nod. "Any progress on understanding all of this?" He gestured at the surreal cityscape. Dr. Patel's eyes lit up with excitement. "We're making breakthroughs every hour. The quantum field has fundamentally altered the laws of physics in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Gravity, electromagnetism, even the strong and weak nuclear forces, they're all malleable now if you know how to manipulate them." Evans felt a mixture of awe and trepidation. "And the Zarkesh? Any word on their status?" The scientist's expression turned serious. "Their invasion force has been completely neutralized. Whatever the recalibrated core did, their bodies couldn't handle it. As for their fleet in orbit," she paused, looking skyward. "Well, that's where things get interesting." Before she could elaborate, Evans' comm crackled to life. "Recruit Evans, report to command immediately. We have a situation." Exchanging a quick glance with Dr. Patel, Evans made his way to the makeshift command center that had been set up in the heart of the quantum core facility. As he entered, he was surprised to see a familiar face. "Major Chen," he exclaimed, unable to hide his relief at seeing Wraith alive. Wraith turned, a hint of a smile on her usually stoic face. "Good to see you too, Evans. Looks like we both made it through the impossible." Colonel Blackburn cleared his throat, bringing their attention to the holographic display at the center of the room. "We've got a developing situation in orbit. Our new quantum sensors are picking up massive energy fluctuations from the Zarkesh fleet." The display showed a swarm of alien ships, their sleek designs now marred by swirling vortexes of quantum energy. "Are they preparing some kind of counterattack?" Evans asked, studying the chaotic patterns. Wraith shook her head. "Not an attack. A desperate escape attempt. The quantum field is affecting their ships just like it affected their ground forces. They're trying to engage their faster-than-light drives to flee." Dr. Patel, who had followed Evans to the command center, spoke up. "But in this altered quantum state, engaging an FTL drive could have catastrophic consequences. The energy release alone could vaporize half the planet." Blackburn's expression was grim. "Options, people. We need them now." Evans felt all eyes turn to him. In that moment, he realized that his experiences, from his training as a black coat to his frontline battles against the Zarkesh, had been leading to this. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We need to extend the quantum field," he said, his voice steady with newfound confidence. "Not to destroy the Zarkesh ships, but to encompass them. Bring them under our control." Dr. Patel's eyes widened. That could work. If we can attune the field to the specific quantum frequency of their ships, we might be able to guide them safely into a stable orbit." Wraith nodded approvingly. "And in doing so, we'd not only prevent a catastrophe, but also gain access to their advanced technology. Technology we'll need if we're going to navigate this new quantum reality." Blackburn didn't hesitate. "Make it happen. Evans, you'll lead the team to implement this plan. You've earned it." What followed was a frenetic race against time. Evans worked alongside Dr. Patel and a team of Earth's brightest minds, pushing the limits of their understanding of the new quantum principles. They repurposed satellite networks, tapped into the planet's geomagnetic field, and channeled the raw power of the recalibrated quantum core. As the Zarkesh ships in orbit reached critical instability, Evans gave the order to activate their hastily constructed quantum net. The sky lit up with auroras of impossible colors as the extended field enveloped the alien fleet. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the plan had failed. The Zarkesh ships writhed in the grip of conflicting quantum forces, their hulls buckling under the strain. But then, slowly but surely, they began to stabilize. One by one, the ships were guided into safe orbits, their systems going dormant as they were fully integrated into Earth's quantum field. As cheers erupted in the command center, Evans felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Wraith, a look of pride on her face. "Well done, Evans," she said. "You've not only saved Earth, but possibly changed the course of human history." Evans nodded, the weight of their accomplishments settling on him. "What happens now, Major? With all this power at our fingertips, all these new possibilities." Wraith's expression turned thoughtful. "Now we face our greatest challenge yet. We have to ensure that humanity uses this gift wisely. The Zarkesh were right about one thing. Unchecked, this power could lead to our extinction. It's up to us, the Black Coats, to guide humanity through this transition." As if on cue, the holographic display flickered, showing scenes from around the world. People were discovering newfound abilities, manipulating quantum fields instinctively. Cities were being rebuilt in ways that defied traditional architecture. And in orbit, the dormant Zarkesh ships waited, holding secrets that could propel humanity to the stars. "It won't be easy," Evans mused, taking in the rapidly changing world. "It never is," Wraith replied with a wry smile. "But that's why we exist. In the shadows or in the light, the Black Coats will always be there, humanity's guardians on the edge of a new frontier." As they stood there, watching the dawn of a new era for humanity, Evans felt a sense of purpose stronger than anything he had experienced before. The invasion was over, but their real work was just beginning. Humanity had not just survived, it had evolved, and with the Black Coats to guide them, the future, however strange and wonderful, was theirs to shape. The quantum age had begun, and with it, humanity's true journey to the stars. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Evans knew one thing for certain. They would face them together, as defenders of Earth and pioneers of a new cosmic order. The end of the Zarkesh invasion wasn't just a victory. It was the first step into a universe of limitless possibilities, and the Black Coats would be there every step of the way, ensuring that humanity's light would shine bright across the quantum tapestry of the cosmos.